Sammy Davis Jr. secretly maintained a storage unit under an alias, paying cash every month until his death. For 30 years, it sat untouched inside a warehouse in Burbank, until investigators finally opened it and discovered far more than just memorabilia. Inside were letters revealing the true identity of his mother, tapes containing conversations capable of destroying entire careers, and undeniable proof of what really happened with actress Kim Novak in 1958. He had recorded and documented everything. After 3 decades of silence, the truth was finally uncovered. Sammy Davis Jr. was born on December 8, 1925, in Harlem, New York City, to parents Sammy Davis Sr. and Ella Sanchez, who were both vaudeville performers. That meant Sammy was born into a world already steeped in show business, but there was a hidden part of his story that few people knew. His mother, Ella, was Cuban, but the family deliberately kept this detail quiet due to widespread anti-Cuban prejudice in America at the time. In those days, revealing such heritage could damage record sales and harm public support. Even as an infant, Sammy's life was shaped by racism and the constant need to conceal aspects of who he truly was. Growing up in Harlem, a neighborhood buzzing with the energy of the Harlem Renaissance, became his first stage and set the tone for the rest of his extraordinary life. By the age of 2, Sammy was already performing with the Will Maston Trio, a vaudeville act led by his father and their family friend Will Maston. While most toddlers were busy playing with toys, Sammy was dancing and singing in theaters across the country. The spotlight quickly became his playground, but it came at a heavy cost. He missed out on a normal childhood. Instead of classrooms and playgrounds, he was learning how to win over audiences and perfect his craft while other children were attending school. The endless touring was grueling, yet it gave him resilience and strength, while also exposing him early to the brutal realities of racism in America. He encountered whites-only signs and endured the sting of being treated as lesser, experiences that ignited a determination inside him to break barriers. By the time he was just 3 years old, his life took another turn when his parents separated. His father gained custody and immersed him even deeper into show business. Will Maston stepped into an even greater role, becoming not only a mentor but almost a godfather figure, doing his best to shield Sammy from the cruelties of the world. Still, there were limits to the protection anyone could offer. Sammy witnessed firsthand the discrimination that Black performers faced, but he also learned how to combat it through undeniable talent, unshakable grace, and relentless hard work. Even as a small child, Sammy was no ordinary kid. By this point, he was already a seasoned performer, traveling from city to city and leaving audiences in awe. At just 7 years old, Sammy appeared on the big screen in the film Rufus Jones for President. Acting alongside the great Ethel Waters, he portrayed a Black boy who imagines himself as president, a comedic premise that nonetheless carried weight in its boldness. At a time when Black actors were scarcely seen in Hollywood, Sammy's charm and charisma shone brightly on screen. His singing and dancing captivated audiences, and the film hinted at the greatness ahead of him. Sammy wasn't merely a child, performer. He was a force to be reckoned with, possessing the rare gift of making people forget the color of his skin, if only for a brief moment. Yet the stage life continued to demand sacrifices. Sammy never attended school like other children. There were no desks, chalkboards, or ringing school bells in his world. Instead, his education came from life on the road, from the books he managed to find, from the people he met, and from the countless stages he conquered. He became self-taught in languages, musical instruments, and a variety of skills no classroom could have offered him. His thirst for knowledge equaled his passion for performance, proving that greatness does not always come from traditional schooling. It can be forged from passion, grit, and an insatiable drive to learn. In 1943, when Sammy was just 18 years old, everything changed. Standing only 5'6" and weighing 120 pounds, he was drafted into the U.S. Army. Leaving behind the relative safety of the stage, he entered a world that was far crueler. He was placed in one of the Army's first integrated units, but the promise of unity was an illusion. Racism was rampant, and the very first soldier he encountered greeted him with a racial slur. The harsh reality struck instantly. In uniform, his talent and charm meant nothing. He endured constant abuse, daily fights, and endless hatred. The Army was supposed to build men, But for Sammy, it stripped away his innocence. The cruelty he suffered was shocking. On one occasion, white soldiers kidnapped him and covered his entire body in white paint, mocking his race. Another time, they tricked him into drinking beer laced with urine, and on several occasions, they urinated directly on him. His nose was broken 3 separate times, yet the torment didn't stop there. They humiliated him by forcing him to perform for them, even scrawling racial slurs across his forehead before shoving him onto the stage. The brutality was relentless, designed to crush his spirit. One night, soldiers tied him to a tree and left, him standing in the freezing cold. The bitter air gnawed at his skin, but the deeper wound was the message it carried. No matter how far you went or what you achieved, you would always be reminded of your place. The army didn't protect him. Instead, it turned a blind eye. That night scarred him forever, leaving a wound on both his body and his soul. Things only escalated from there. In one particularly savage attack, a group of soldiers beat him so badly he was hospitalized for 3 days. The assault wasn't random. It was meant as punishment. Yet no one was ever held accountable. The army, which was supposed to unite Americans, allowed hatred to fester unchecked. As he lay in that hospital bed, Sammy came to a grim realization. He could only rely on his own strength to survive. The torment pushed him to dark places, and at times he contemplated ending his life. The unrelenting cruelty almost broke him, but something inside pulled him back from the edge. When he was eventually assigned to the Army's entertainment unit, he rediscovered his true weapon: his voice, his dancing, and his showmanship. Even those who despised him couldn't resist his talent, and their reluctant applause became a source of power. By the time Sammy Davis Jr. returned from military service in 1951, he was ready to conquer the world. He had fought for his country, and now he was determined to fight for his rightful place in show business. That opportunity came at Ciro's, the glamorous Sunset Boulevard nightclub. In March 1951, Sammy, performing as part of the Will Maston Trio, opened for Janice Page. The performance was magical, but the true turning point came shortly after that year's Academy Awards, when the club was filled with stars such as Humphrey Bogart, Lauren Bacall, Cary Grant, Marilyn Monroe, and Judy Garland. As they watched him perform, they were mesmerized, and in that moment, Sammy became an overnight sensation. The buzz was unstoppable, leading to a flood of new bookings. By 1952, he was appearing on Eddie Cantor's Colgate Comedy Hour and even received a $20,000 television pilot deal from ABC, an unprecedented achievement for a black entertainer, though no sponsor dared back it. Still, Sammy had already broken through. His hit record Sierra Rose made him the talk of the town. But just 3 years later, tragedy struck. On November 19, 1954, while driving his Cadillac from Las Vegas to Los Angeles at only 29 years old, Sammy was involved in a devastating crash on US Route 66 when another car backed into his lane. The collision forced the car's horn button into his left eye, causing permanent damage. Rushed to community hospital, doctors could not save the eye. He remained there only 9 days, supported by close friends like Frank Sinatra, while show offers poured in at triple his previous rates. At first, Sammy wore an eye patch before eventually adopting a glass eye, and with characteristic humor, he joked about being a one-eyed Negro who's Jewish. Many believed the accident would end his career, but just 8 weeks later, he was back on stage at Ciro's, dazzling Hollywood's elite once more. That accident also altered his life spiritually. In 1960, he converted to Judaism. While recovering from his injuries, he had read about the Jewish people's long history of struggle and survival. His friend Eddie Cantor had given him a mezuzah and spoken with him about faith, which resonated deeply. Sammy said he had always felt Jewish in his thinking. Though many mocked him for the decision, he believed that being both black and Jewish gave him even greater strength. He became a symbol of resilience and emerged as a strong voice for civil rights. Yet despite his fame, he continued to endure bitter racism. In 1950s Las Vegas, he was allowed to headline shows but not stay in the very hotels where he performed. He could not walk through the front doors or dine in the restaurants. Sammy refused to tolerate such treatment and, with the help of the Rat Pack, pressured casinos into changing their discriminatory policies. By the early 1960s, he was earning $25,000 a week at the Sands Hotel and made history as the first black entertainer allowed to stay at the Frontier. By 1971, official segregation in Las Vegas hotels had ended, thanks in part to his determination. Sammy Davis Jr. was far more than a singer. He was a man of endless talents. He taught himself to play the drums, trumpet, piano, vibraphone, and more.